Hey beer lovers, welcome to episode 5 of the Hong Kong Beer Project, where I have a couple more brews, one of them being Tsingtao, which is one of the most common Chinese beers and absolutely everywhere in Hong Kong. And I also have a beer called Snow Beer, which has been in my grocery store for a while, and I've just been very curious and wanting to see what this beer is all about. This one's made in China. Well, actually, they're both made in China today, so we have true Chinese beers today. And my snack for today hails from Taiwan. This is oyster pancake flavored potato chips. Snow Beer was a find at my local grocery store, and I've seen it there several times, so I was getting a little bit curious about it. One of the more unique things about this beer compared to most of the others that I've reviewed is it's actually a 4.3% alcohol, whereas almost all the other ones have been a 5% alcohol. It's a pale yellow, crystal clear beer, looks fairly effervescent, and the head seems to last a good minute. Oh, it's very sweet. A rice-like maltiness that's most reminiscent so far of blue ice. After that wears off, I can start to smell a little bit of malty cereal smell, and that's about all I get. I don't get any hops, and I don't get any alcohol or yeast or bacteria smells. It has a surprisingly malty, full-bodied flavor with just a tiny, tiny little hint of skunk that I didn't smell at all. The aftertaste favors wood more than sour. Heads off in a kind of woody, hay direction. I would say this beer is just very mild and easy on the palate. Light, slightly oily, a little bit of creaminess from the effervescence. I'm pleasantly surprised with the taste of this beer right now. It's really mild. It's not going to get in the way of anything. It comes in first with a bit of a malty flavor. It's a little bit cereal, just a tiny, tiny hint of skunky flavor that makes it taste like a real beer. But overall, it's very clean. It's light, a hint of slightly, slightly floral hops, but it's just a whiff. It's barely even there. It's snack time. One of the most common street foods in Taiwan are these oyster pancakes. They're really kind of strange a little bit. They make this batter and they put a few oysters in it and they kind of crack an egg on it and they cook it until it's just a little bit slimy. They made potato chips of the same flavor. So when you just pour them out, they look like sour cream and onion potato chips. And they smell more or less like sour cream and onion potato chips. Like initial flavor is quite sweet, and then it fades through a little bit of a seafoody flavor and kind of gradually gets a little bit more of an umami hint. They're definitely not as salty as American potato chips would be. The more of them you eat, the more the seafood flavor starts to build up in your mouth. They completely overpower this beer. I can't even tell that I'm drinking beer right now. It's an easily drinkable refresher beer on a hot day. You're roaming around Hong Kong and it's 30 degrees outside and 1,000% humidity. Stop into 7-Eleven. If they carry the snow beer, pick up one of these. In my mind, this is really the original Chinese beer. Probably the first Chinese beer that I ever had. And it's named for the province that it's brewed in, which in Cantonese sounds something like Tsingtao. Head dissipation is essentially immediate here. We get big bubbles inside, more like a soda than the last beer. Again, light yellow color, a tiny bit darker than my snow beer. Let's see what it smells like. No, it has a much stronger smell than the snow beer. Very grainy. The aroma is really dominated by the yeast. It's a little bit wild, barnyardy, and horsey in the yeast smell, but the fact that the aroma is yeast dominated really to me is reminiscent of a more Belgian beer or a higher quality beer. So it's interesting, and I'm not sure what to expect right now. I wouldn't say skunky. It's not the first word that comes to mind. It's it's bitter. It actually tastes like maybe it has some hops in it. You get hints of yeast. The malt is there. It's not too strong. The grain is there. It's not too strong. It's balanced. The aftertaste stays pretty well balanced. It doesn't fade off into any weird or metallic or overly woody flavors, even as it fades on your palate. It definitely turns woody, but not in an unpleasant way. The mouthfeel still light, not thick, just a tiny, tiny bit oily. Medium effervescence, not super, super bubbly, despite the big bubble at the beginning. I'm a little bit worried about how they're going to work with the Tsingtao, but must try. These are like roommates that can live together without changing their lives at all to balance each other. The chips don't taste the way don't seem to impact the way the beer tastes, and the beer doesn't seem to impact the way the chips taste. Today was a good day for both beers and snacks. I was pleasantly surprised by the snow beer. Just it's not exciting, but it's drinkable. It's an easy beer to drink and probably a good hot summer day beer. And I was also actually really pleasantly surprised by the Tsingtao, which I've had before, and I never really took the time to taste it very thoroughly. And I have to say that I appreciate that it has real beer flavor. It tastes like a real beer, and this time not in an unpleasant way. Next week, I'm starting in on stouts, and I'm probably going to start with a Guinness Foreign Extra, which is not actually a Hong Kong beer, but because it's available everywhere here, I have to include it in my reviews. And we'll see what accompanies it. So come back next Saturday, and I'll have two more beers for you, and we're starting in on the stouts, which I'm excited about. Thank you for watching. I love drinking these beers with you guys. I hope you enjoy it too. We'll see you next week.